Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to talk a little bit about what's the new, I guess, final Soulbind ability, how that might affect your arenas, and things to consider as we come into the next reset. We're also going to talk a little bit about the changes. There was a couple buffs to Warrior, DK, Demon Hunter, all these other things, and how I think that might change the meta a little bit. So let's talk about the renown abilities first. So renown abilities, we've been sort of up to the final row now for a while, and this week for the majority of, I guess, the first soul binds, the final ability is coming out. So we're going to talk about Kyrian first. So Kyrian has let go of the past, which obviously gives you this like flat 3% damage mitigation against magic. Pretty much you'll always have this up after the first couple seconds of the arena. And this might be a little bit of a change. It'll make the game a little bit slower. I don't think it's a huge difference, but if you play like a caster melee like kind of cleave, you might realize or notice that a lot of Kyrian, warriors, Kyrian rep paladins, holy paladins, this type of thing, who are running the Pelagos tree are dying a little bit slower. Maybe it affects rot damage a bit too, right? So, all this kind of stuff adds up. While 3% doesn't sound too crazy, it does make a difference to how the game feels as a whole, right? These small 3% increments, across an entire team over a 10-minute game. If you always have this up, it's going to feel different. And I'll give you a reason why. And to kind of put this in perspective, this would be the equivalent of having 6% more versatility in terms of defensive like stats, right? Because versatility gives you half of it as damage mitigation. So if you're versing a double wizard cleave and your verse is currently like 33%, and you drop down to like 27%, right? You probably feel a bit of a difference in those goes. But overall, I don't think this is going to make a huge difference to how the game feels, but it's something to look out for. Kleia is getting a couple of important things, and these are coming out in 2 weeks' time. So Kleia, I guess, whenever there's a change where a soulbind gets a huge new ability that comes out and the other soulbinds can't catch up yet, which usually happens if you're the second and third soulbind, there is a difference in balance between those classes. It gets a little bit like if you're a Pelagos main, like you mainly use Pelagos, you're going to be a little bit stronger compared to a Kleia, right? And Kleia is usually used by like Holy Paladins and tanks, right? So when Kleia comes out, I think this damage reduction ability, sorry, this movement speed ability will be pretty nice for demon hunters who probably will never be Kleia. But I can't think of many other classes that can't slow a target. Maybe fire mages potentially, or you know, some other specs that just don't have a way to slow you. Uh, I think mainly this will probably proc a lot more against when you're versing holy paladins, because they tend to run Kleia and they're probably going to want this double potency conduit, right? So you're going to see a bit more of this. So if you get a big slow on you, you'll know where it's coming from, the Kleia Soulbind. This point of courage is actually quite strong. It gives everybody 1% crit. Well, sorry, it gives you 3% crit in threes. I don't know how close nearby is. I imagine it's probably 20 yards or something if everyone's nearby. So 3% extra crit is kind of nice, but you do lose the double potencies. And finally, this is kind of interesting. I don't think this will make a big difference, but maybe if you're healing somebody that's, if you're doing a massive heal like a huge divine favor, and then they do a bit more damage, then I guess 4% of a 30k divine favor is still like a 3k heal, but that's only 600 every second, so not a big deal. So onto Necrolord. This is probably the thing I wanted to highlight the most, right? So the ultimate form from Necrolord with the Plague Divisor Marilef, right? This will give full crowd control immunity while you're casting it, right? And it's a 4-second cast, and then you'll have an extra 4 seconds of crowd control immunity with some health bonus, right? So you'll essentially have 8 seconds as an Arsham. I do think this will make quite a big difference for the top level. I think Arshams do become a lot stronger if they're able to outplay a lot of CC from Rogue Mage, outplay a lot of setup comps generally by channeling this Fleshcraft. And it might be the thing that tides you over until you get your grounding and shear back. But also for a lot of warriors out there in twos and threes, you need to really, really take note of when they've used this, right? So if you're leap fearing, maybe a big thing you do is leap fear. The shaman often has a hard time like getting the tremor down in time, but if they're flesh crafted or they just flesh crafted, maybe it's the start of the arena or something, right? Your fear will do absolutely nothing, right? And it'll still go on cooldown. So take note if you see Fleshcraft on Necrolord Shamans starting from next reset, they will have this CC immunity, which is very, very potent, right? 8 seconds of crowd control immunity is very strong, especially as more and more people get better at it. I think in a couple weeks' time, when our shamans and enhancement shamans, even, well, enhancement doesn't run this, Ellie shamans, um, get a good feel for this, it's going to be really annoying because you can do things like ultimate form when somebody wants to triple fear. You can ultimate form polymorphs, ultimate form stuns as they're in the air too, all this kind of stuff. So this is a really, really big one to watch out for. On the other viable one, Emily, you'll see potentially in a couple of weeks' time the Gnashing Chompers, which I don't think anyone's going to run, but probably Gristled Toes, right? Gristled Toes gives you kind of, I imagine this is the same thing. I don't know what nearby is, but this would give you around 6% extra movement speed ability, which when you actually consider the fact that Ghost Wolf means you can't be slowed under 100%, this might mean that Ghost Wolf is 106%. The main reason why I'm talking about Ghost Wolf is a lot of shamans and DKs run this. So another thing to watch out for against DKs is, if you're fearing them or you're stunning them, watch for the Necrolord ability. Finally, the Sulfuric Emission. This fear, I don't really see many people, like I can't think that many people would use this. Maybe it would be really good against um, like Rogue Mage, but then you have the Fleshcraft, which I think is better against Rogue Mage generally. So watch out for this fear. If you get feared, you can Berserker Rage it, but it can happen every minute. And then finally on Bonesmith Haymere, these are pretty cool. Like this means that you get a bit of extra speed. So I guess for DKs who are trying to chase something, you might see them move faster. I don't really see this being like I couldn't see this being played, but it is your double potency, and I don't think many people play Bonesmith Highmere anyway. And this after landing 10 crits, you gain 80% increased crit chance. This is pretty big. I actually think this is quite nice for a lot of classes that really like synergize off crit. I can't really think of any classes that would pick Necrolord and also be um, taking advantage of this. Potentially, I guess, Ellie Shamans, but they already crit so many abilities anyway because of Flame Shock Lava Burst. And then that is completely irrelevant. So if we look at Night Fae, Night Fae is going to have this Naya Tools Burrs. So you might see this on Night Fae Warriors or Rogues who play with the Grove Invigoration. This gives you a like an ability to put a burr onto a target, right, which reduces their movement speed and deals some dot damage to them. So if you're getting slowed by a fire mage, this is probably what it's coming from. Naya's Tool's Poison, so this means that when you interrupt someone, you do a bit of extra damage on them, right, for this dot. Just probably an extra piece of damage. We'll see how much this actually hits for when the patch comes out. And the herbs, this is kind of nice too, right? This is just a 5% extra haste if you're a Night Fae healer. So maybe Resto Druid healers might opt for this, just to buff their team a little bit. Um, the final thing would be, I guess, for Dreamweaver, right? So shifting power will give them a haste buff, which is pretty good actually. Once you're 34 renown, and they'll also get. Oh, these are irrelevant, but the Fields of Blossoms will kind of mean that they could shifting power and then quickly poly or quickly get more fireballs out. It has really really good synergy with the rest of their kit, and then the Pod Tender obviously is a big reason why people pick Night Fae Dreamweaver. And finally, in not this reset, but next reset, you'll see maybe more Corrin players come out, but mainly because of the Wild Hunt and the fact that some of these are pretty good. I think generally the damaging an enemy before they damage you might be good for rogues or something, because that's an extra 25% crit if they're not playing the legendary. And rogues usually always get the first hit because they're coming out of stealth. Standing still for 5 seconds, you take 15% less physical damage. This might be good against rogues because you're going to be stunned for 5 seconds, and maybe if you know the go is about to happen, you can stop moving just to get this damage debuff. Sorry, damage buff, reduction buff. Finally, for Venthyr, we're going to get familiar predicaments. So for a lot of warriors and Venthyr players, they're probably pretty happy because this is a big reason why people choose Venthyr, right? Familiar predicaments mean that um, interrupts, snares, roots are reduced by 25%. So against a Venthyr player who is in Nagia, right, you're going to have to snare them or like hamstring them every like 12 seconds instead of every 15 seconds, which is annoying for you. But also, if you're a Venthyr player, you're going to be sitting less roots. Slows on you will go away faster, and everyone's felt that feeling when like you've had a hamstring on you that's like 1 second off, and if you could get to the target, they're dead, but they get topped because of the kiting. So definitely something to watch out for. Familiar predicaments. Play around this, but also if you're a Venthyr warrior, you're probably pretty stoked because you'll get your two potencies and you get familiar predicaments, which is a nice synchronization because a lot of the times the double potencies have a crappy last ability. Neither of these are too interesting. Maybe Dauntless Duelist could be good. Um, you deal 3% more damage to them and they deal 1.5% less damage to you. So it's the equivalent of having 3% extra versatility against a certain target. I don't actually know how this exactly interacts, but this might be a good like alternative if you want the double finesse conduits, which usually are pretty good because, let me go back to warrior. If you're a Venthyr warrior, you might want to run safeguard and then you might want to run inspiring presence on the other one if you want to play super defensively. I don't think anyone's really playing Theatar and Arena, so we'll kind of skip that one. But General Draven, obviously in not this reset, but next reset, this tree becomes way stronger because you get Hold Your Ground, which gives you extra 4% healing done, but 10% increased stamina, which might increase. I don't know if this would increase your health exactly by like 4 or 5k, but it give you a little bit extra health. And standing still for 4 seconds isn't that hard against something like RMP. While you're waiting on your mount, you can just stop moving, proc the extra stamina, and that effect still persists as you move. It's different from a lot of the other effects that are similar in nature. Um, Superior tactics, so when you interrupt someone, you get an extra 10% crit chance. I think this might be good, right? This actually does sound pretty good. 10% crit as Venthyr is like nothing to laugh at. And having the double endurance, I mean, that's the only bad thing about this, but I guess you could run brutal vitality and maybe, I don't know, like Stalwart Guardian you're obviously going to run, but there's not many very good endurance conduits, so it'll be seen to be believed whether this is better than this, right? Because you get the double potencies. And then finally, built for war, this gives you pretty much an extra, I guess, 4% strength when you're on a target and you have over 80% health, which is pretty decent damage upgrade. Just generally, primary stats are really important this season, and in a lot of comps, you're not really going to be taking too much damage. Um, I think in a lot of threes comps, when we're versing like caster melee and they're not on me, I'll be like 90% most of the game. So this could be pretty good. Uh, if you again need if you want like a finesse conduit or something, but you do get the finesse if you go via Enduring Gloom anyway. So that sort of covers the Soulbinds, right? Let's have a look at the new changes to the classes, right? So there's been a whole bunch of buffs, mainly for PvE. BM has a buff 5%, Survival has a buff of 5%. I think still these classes won't be very good in PvP. I think BM and Survival are like decent, they're like mid tier. I don't know if 5% is enough to push them up to like A tier. I would say they're very firmly in C and B tier, but maybe that does make a big difference as the rest of these changes happen, right? Frost DK has a 5% damage increase. This is a pretty big deal because Frost DK is kind of feel quite strong at the moment anyway. So having that extra 5% damage on their goes, on their chill streak goes, along with what we're going to talk about in a second, will be something you might feel. 5% is definitely not insignificant. Demon Hunter getting 3% extra damage. I feel like Demon Hunters actually do pretty good damage in Arena. They're very squishy. So I don't know if this will actually really change where they are in the meta. I think survivability buffs would make them better, but it's definitely going to make Demon Hunters comps marginally stronger. Assas Rogues, 5% extra damage. Enhancement and is an interesting one, right? Because they kind of were doing a lot of damage in Arena. I feel like they were super, super meta for a while when the Wind Fury bug was around. And then it sort of seems like they've dropped off from higher rated Arena generally. In NA at least. I think in EU there's still a lot of turbos, but whenever I queue, it's mainly RMP and like Ret Warrior instead of turbo. Whereas a couple weeks ago it was only turbos at the top. For Warlocks, the extra 5% Destro buff will be nice. I don't think it's enough to change anything because the haste values are too long. And the Fury and Arms buffs, obviously, are going to be quite good. It's just extra damage. I don't know if it's necessary, and maybe we will see a nerf to our utility because as we keep getting more and more damage, I think something's got to give, right? Warriors just can't be a hero class. They can't have all the utility and all the damage. So I do think we may see some tuning changes to Warrior, specifically in PvP, either a week or 2 weeks from now. I think out of this, I could see Frost DKTSG being considerably stronger, especially with the Necrolord R Shaman. Um, with the R Shaman having CC like the ability to immune a lot of CC, and the Warrior and the DK having not considerably, but a pretty good amount of extra damage that would both benefit from the 30 renowns, because both DK and Warrior also play a tree that gets their final ability now. You may see more Frost TSG. I do think Frost TSG is a very good comp that will continue to be better as time goes on. So we may see a lot more of that. Maybe Turbos is a bit stronger now because that's a pretty, like, if both classes are getting buffed, it's going to be pretty strong. And maybe we'll see some more like Demon Hunter, Warrior, survival hunters and jungles instead of MM. But that sort of covers everything in the changes. So hopefully you like these types of videos where I talk a little bit about new meta things that are coming up in the week. I didn't really see many people talk that much about what's happening. I know a lot of people talked about the buffs and changes, but the renown changes I think are pretty significant for you to know and remember. And hopefully this was useful to keep in your head. Appreciate it, guys, and we will definitely be posting more. If you're interested in our content and you enjoy it, please consider subscribing and putting notifications on our videos. Liking and commenting is much appreciated too. If you want to watch any games live, the Twitch has been absolutely blowing up. We're getting like more and more viewers every single day. It's super cool. You want to send in any VODs, follow the Twitch. And consider subscribing there too. All right, thank you very much. We will talk tomorrow.